This is Dr. Wysong. This series of videos on the big questions of life will show where each one of us is led if we dare to leave behind preconceived ideas and see where reason and evidence lead. Mind outside of matter. In my scientific and medical training and studies, I came to believe that we are just a physical stimulus response mechanism controlled and directed by an electrochemical computer made of meat, the brain. Consciousness was a mere epiphenomenon, a byproduct of matter and confined to inside the head. However, as discussed here, consciousness is like the quantum and does not possess a precise location. It's best thought of as indeterminate and being everywhere at once. This understanding helps us better grasp many puzzling things, such as knowing fantastic detail in huge mathematical pictures, such as the ability of Akira Haraguchi to recite a number for pi out to 83,431 decimal places. The transference of learned skills, for example, trace your name in the air with your left elbow, something you've never done before. The fact that you can do it suggests that skills are learned holographically and are not restricted to a particular spot in the brain. There's recognition of a familiar face regardless of the angle or part of the face viewed. Learning to ride a bicycle without memorizing every intricate detail of movement. We connect with things holistically, not by pieces. And then there's seeing what is not there by constructing images, words, and thoughts out of fragments. For example, you will see how that's a paragraph is written that is complete nonsense, but when you read it, you'll be able to read it as if it is perfectly clear English. Further proof that the mind is not constrained by brain matter is the way it projects itself like a magnetic field out where the thing is which we perceive. Jean Piaget, a Swiss researcher, discovered that it is only with modern indoctrination that people come to believe that their minds are in their heads. Primitive people and children under the age of about 10 think that their minds extend out into the world around them. Penfield concluded from his research that patients thought of themselves as having an existence separate from the body. The Egyptians thought the brain was a cooling organ and unceremoniously dug it out of the skull through the nose in preparation for mummification. To them, the heart was considered a far more important organ for housing consciousness. From first awareness, we have a sense of self. That identity does not change no matter how long we live or what food we eat to make our continuously regenerating body and brain. The inner person does not grow old, nor does it begin young. The inner person is not something that results from the growth of a brain. In fact, all of us in everyday language reflect the sense that we are other than body when we say, my foot, my heart, my brain, my thoughts. The my is the real conscious, self-aware us. The body is a physical machine we utilize for the physical realm. The source of thought. Thoughts arrive unannounced through the course of every day and steal us away. Yet nobody has any idea what the source is of the 60,000 plus thoughts that we spontaneously produce each day. No piece of matter can explain which thoughts spring to consciousness in the order they do and stay organized. We don't have several thoughts coming forth all at once or lapses with no thought at all. If the brain is just a repository of data that does not explain how that data creates new ideas or what prevents it from spilling out randomly, making us quite crazy and functionless. All of the millions of inventions throughout history that add up to the marvels of technology came from human thought. It's rationally and scientifically impossible that such incredible complexity, novelty, and creativity could spontaneously emerge from a soup of mechanical and robotic brain atoms. Mathematics, for example, fundamental to all these advances, is a purely intellectual phenomenon that cannot be tied in any way to the neurophysiologist's stimulus-response model of the brain. We are dynamic, creative, adaptable, volitional, and spontaneous. Such elusive qualities of personality are not reducible to the data our brains can amass. Trying to localize choice is like trying to find the structure of ambition. The brain as a receiver. The weird abilities touched upon in the previous chapters about ESP, psychokinesis, and so forth can best be explained by the understanding that consciousness exists extraneous to our material world. When engaged with the brain, this consciousness, which is connected to everything, uses psychokinesis, mind-controlling matter, to influence and direct the material brain in much the same way that a garage door, opener, controller, consciousness directs the motor brain to engage mechanisms to lift the door. Extraneous consciousness is the cause, not the result of phenomena in the matter of the brain. The relationship between the brain and mental activity is like that between a computer and the internet, or a farmer and his tractor. Relationships don't mean two things are the same or that one creates the other. The brain also can be likened to a television set, a receiver. When we turn the channel and see an elephant, that elephant is not actually in the television set. The image of the elephant is being sent to the television by invisible waves from a production company somewhere else on the globe. We can point stimulate the set, like change the channel, and get innumerable messages and images, but not one of them actually originates from the television itself. Similarly, choices and initiation, other than reflexes, don't originate within the brain matrix. They come from elsewhere. The brain simply processes them and directs the body to obey them. Causation is downward from a non-material consciousness, not upward out of the brain. In the late 1700s, Franz Joseph Gall attempted to reduce all human faculties to a topographical brain map. His science of phrenology, as it was called, described 27 organs in the brain. These were evidenced by bumps or other physical features of the head. 19 of the organs were shared with animals. He identified locales for the organs of metaphysics, property owning, desire to store food, carnivorism, love of glory, which was considered a beneficial trait for the individual and society, and belief in God, to name a few of the more interesting ones. Other than being scientifically wrong, his ideas became interpreted as a threat to religion and fell into disfavor. Mind is not brain. Brainy function can occur in the virtual absence of brains. Consider the following evidence. No brain. In children with hydrocephalus, the fluid buildup can squeeze the cortex, the outer smart layer of the brain, to the point that there is almost no evidence of a cortex at all. But most of these individuals do not lose self-awareness or choice. Incidentally, you'll see some radiographs of people with hydrocephalus and how the head has been filled almost entirely with fluid and the brain obliterated. Although hydrocephalus can result in various problems, mental development may be normal. In one case, a 26-year-old student with hydrocephalus had an IQ of 126 and received honors in mathematics. He had virtually no brain other than a thin layer less than a millimeter thick. Now, you might search "boy with no brain" on the internet and YouTube to learn more about this incredible evidence. Brain attrition. Each day, a human loses about 1,000 brain neurons. Some 80% of the neural mass is dissolved by age 14. In spite of this considerable disruption and wasting, consciousness maintains its integrity. Not only that, great intellect can be developed in the adult years as the brain mass continues to shrink. Body turnover. If a person is mere matter, that would mean we come from our food and leave via the toilet. The consistency of a person through several atomic changeovers during a lifetime speaks to something outside of matter that is the source of that constancy. Animal experiments, for example, rats with massive portions of their brains removed, continue to efficiently run a previously learned maze. Salamanders that have had their brains sliced, flipped, shuffled, and with parts deleted and even minced retain certain behaviors. Brain excision. Patients who have had part of their brains removed due to tumors may suffer no loss of self-awareness. Head injury. Victims of accident with large portions of their brains damaged may still perform functions believed to be controlled by the damaged or missing parts. Blind sight. People who have had a part of their visual cortex surgically removed or damaged lose sight in a portion of a visual field. One patient was tested with things placed in the blind field and asked to guess what they were. Accuracy was near 100%. The mind can evidently see when there is no visual portion of the brain to permit vision. Other evidence of mind being outside matter include inferred sight. Some individuals who are totally blind insist that they can see quite well, apparently visually conscious of the inferred surroundings. You can test your own ability to see by inference. In the drawing, you will see what is being referred to there, where you can visualize a triangle even though one is not even in the image. Phantom limbs. People who have had limbs removed, or are born without them, or have a section of the body anesthetized, can experience the motor and sensory sensations of the part missing or anesthetically blocked. Research has shown that these sensations don't originate in the brain or in severed nerve endings at the point of amputation. Out-of-body and near-death experiences, discussed in the next chapter, are in effect whole-body phantoms. Awareness is not dependent upon the presence of a material body or brain. Mind outside animals. In the absence of a controlling physical brain, the characteristics of mind and intelligence are displayed throughout nature. Compass termites build huge stone-like monoliths. The mound is a few inches thick, about 12 feet square, and perfectly oriented north and south. This permits the knife-like edge of the mound to be exposed to the overhead hot noon sun, while its broad faces capture the heat from the rising and declining sun. Its elaborate internal honeycomb structure has thousands of shaft valves to facilitate air conditioning so that the internal temperature and humidity remain constant. A single termite has no idea how to build such a thing. As a group, they have the mind, actually X that out, the genius to do it perfectly. Since that genius of the colony mind does not reside in any single termite, it must lie outside of them. In similar fashion, with outside temperatures dropping to well below freezing and humidity at 30%, the inside of a beehive remains at 70 degrees and 90% humidity. No single bee has any idea how to do this. Bee genius comes from elsewhere. African driver ants can number over 22 million in a colony. All of them are blind. There are specialized hunters, nest tenders, and fighter sentries that guard the river of ants as it flows through the jungle. Although these blind creatures can communicate to a degree by chemical pheromones, only an extrinsic colony mind could orchestrate all the ants to one unified colony purpose. A sea anemone has no brain. Ganglia, which are nests of intermingled nerves, or even concentrated neurons, yet all of its parts coordinate. Each tentacle also has a memory, but no nerves, let alone a brain, and if offered a trick, non-food object, the tentacle will remember and reject it the next time it's offered. Only that one brainless tentacle, and none of the others, remembers the trick. Intelligent feats are obviously not dependent upon a material brain. Mixotricha paradoxa are protozoa that digest the wood in a termite's gut. They have no nervous system and move with cilia that are themselves individual rod-like bacteria. There is no physical mind controlling this hodgepodge. Other protozoa with no nervous system have been found to both learn and remember. E. coli bacteria can evaluate 20 different chemicals at the same time, swim to the area where food concentration is increasing the fastest, reevaluate the environment every 4 seconds, and communicate with one another. And that's pretty smart for being one-celled and brainless. When food becomes scarce, the tiny brainless underground slime mold, Dictyostelium, will send out a chemical message to its comrades. After about 100,000 of them gather, they decide to form into one organism, a tiny slug that wriggles its way up through the ground mulch. Some of these slugs then become a stalk. Others at the top become spores so they can spread with the wind to new food sources. That process is orchestrated with no nerves and no brains. Shoals, flocks, and swarms of fish, birds, and insects will move like one gigantic organism with no crashes and no clear leader. Millions of Indonesian fireflies spread over miles will synchronize their flash. There is no identified material seat of intelligence that directs these multitudes. Plants without brains communicate and have memory. For example, trees being foraged or invaded by insects will send a message of warning to fellow trees miles away. In response, the trees receiving the message will increase the production of tannins and other chemicals that are noxious and toxic to the attackers. Roots of plants also communicate back and forth with brainless soil fungi and other microorganisms. Mind outside the human body. The human body does not consciously control whatever it is that keeps it alive. Something immensely intelligent must govern, coordinate, and direct the trillions of functions performed by trillions of cells going on at any given second in the body. No physical command center can be found anywhere in the body governing this human moving ant colony, which we can be likened to. The human brain and nervous system can be thought of as a colony of worker neurons, communicator neurons interconnecting and supporting glial cells, which are microglia, astrocytes, and oligodendrocytes, and so forth, and a variety of other specialized cells such as Schwann, Pendemol, and satellite. The command center of the nervous system, colony, apparently lies outside of the body since no specific material focus can be identified as the leader. Human organs are also like colonies. There are billions of liver cells, but no identifiable controller of which liver cell will do what function, how the shape of the 3 pounds of liver is maintained, and what liver cell goes to which exact spot on which lobe during embryological development. The intricately coordinated mass of liver cells process about a liter of blood each minute, perform over 500 different chemical reactions, convert food to chemicals that can be used by body cells, and clear the blood of toxins. To begin the list of functions, that's just only the start. Nobody has ever found a liver brain, nor have they explained how all the liver cells get along so well. There's no wars, insurrections, slackers, social programs, or revolutions, just harmony and peace generation after generation. That is, unless we assault it with improper living, eating, or drugs. The lauded DNA turns out not to be some self-actuating program explaining life, but only a recipe for the use of amino acid ingredients, the protein and enzyme components. DNA or other nucleic acids don't explain why all the ingredients in the trillions of creatures on Earth assemble as they do into whole functioning organisms. No physical entity has been identified that controls life's components, turns them on and off, and measures their dose. Since these machinations are far more complex than even our brains can comprehend, they are best accounted for by a superintelligence. Brainless, actually half-witted, containing only half the genetic material of a body cell, spermatozoa swim miles on human scale to find a brainless half-witted egg to form a fertilized whole-witted but brainless zygote the size of this period. This in turn divides trillions of times, and some of the brainless cells becomes livers, some tongues, some fingers, and some brains that proceed to reason that their intelligence comes from non-intelligence. The heart has qualities that are usually ascribed to the brain, such as emotion, love, and intelligence. Dr. Gary Schwartz at the University of Arizona reports that there are over 70 documented cases of individuals receiving heart transplants getting far more than they bargained for. Sonny Graham received a heart from Terry Cottle, who had shot himself. Sonny became infatuated with Terry's widow and married her. 12 years later, he shot himself. A young boy who wrote poetry and songs died in a car crash. His heart was donated to a girl named Danielle, who, upon hearing a song the young boy had written, immediately knew the words to it. A young boy who loved classical music died with his violin on his chest. The recipient of his heart developed a love for classical music. A lesbian who was fond of burgers received the heart of a man-crazy vegetarian lady. The recipient then developed an aversion to meat and married a man shortly thereafter. This constitutes more evidence of our holographic nature in that mind is both extraneous to and perfuses the body, just like it does a flock of birds and ant colony. Internet search Dr. Cullen, Cosmic Heart, for more evidence that the heart is far more than a pump. Now then, if mind is extraneous to matter, we had to have had a pre-body history. That also means we would have a post-body future. Let's see if reason and evidence bears that out.
Thank you for listening. Keep in mind that solving the big questions requires foundations upon which truthful answers can be built. So please work through the series sequentially. This information has taken decades of research, thought, and writing. Aside from the peace of mind the solutions have brought me, the only reward I seek is hearing that it's helped you. Feel free to contact me with any comments or questions at asifThinkingMatters.com.